The heavy acidic rain of the scrap world Vexia IV drummed a relentless rhythm against the corrugated metal roof of the auction house. It was a sound that usually drowned out the conscience of the galaxy, washing away the guilt of the scavengers, warlords, and opportunists who gathered here. But for Ronin, it was just white noise. He stood in the back of the humid, dimly lit warehouse, leaning against a rusted support beam. His arms crossed over a leather jacket that had seen more parsecs than most starships. He wasn't here for the high-grade thrusters or the stolen military tech. He was here because he was broke. His ship was bleeding coolant, and the new sector regulations required a crew of 2 to clear the customs gate. He didn't need a partner. He needed a warm body with a pulse to sign a manifest. The air inside smelled of stale ozone, cheap tobacco, and fear. The auctioneer, a corpulent slug-like creature suspended in a hover chair, boomed over the crowd, his voice amplified by crackling speakers. Next up, Lot 89, a Valorian conduit class female. Rare, dangerous, discounted. The crowd, a mix of opulent criminals and grimy miners, rippled with laughter. Valorians were a myth to most, a nightmare to others. They were living batteries, beings capable of manipulating energy fields, but they were notoriously unstable. To own one was like keeping a pet supernova. 2 heavily armed droids dragged the lot onto the stage. She was small, far smaller than the legend suggested. Her skin was the color of twilight, a deep shifting indigo, but it was marred by glowing cracks that pulsed with a sickly violet light. She wore inhibitor collars on her neck, wrists, and ankles. Heavy industrial tech designed to dampen a starship engine, now clamped onto a girl who looked like she hadn't eaten in weeks. Her hair was a cascading waterfall of silver, matted and dull. She didn't look at the crowd. She stared at the floor, her shoulders hunched, waiting for the jeers. Seller notes, the auctioneer gurgled. Subject is defective. Leaks radiation, prone to energy surges. Scorched the last 3 owners. Bidding starts at 100 credits. Do I hear 100 for this spare part? Silence. The heavy silence of a crowd that valued profit over life. A mining boss near the front spat on the floor. I wouldn't take her if you paid me. She'll fry my electronics before we break orbit. Another laughed. Defective goods. Toss her in the incinerator. Ronin watched her. He saw the way her hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the effort of holding something back. He saw the inhibitor collar on her neck sparking, fighting to contain whatever storm raged inside her. He knew that look. It was the look of something pushed to the edge of breaking, something that had been told it was worthless so many times it had started to believe it. It was the same look he saw in the mirror every morning after the war. 50 credits, the auctioneer pleaded, sounding bored. Anyone, or shall we dispose of the asset? The girl flinched. Just a micro movement, but Ronin caught it. She was terrified. I'll take her, Ronin said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a gravelly weight that cut through the murmur of the crowd. Heads turned. The mining boss sneered, revealing a mouthful of gold teeth. A human, of course. You apes love picking up trash. 50 credits, Ronin repeated, pushing off the beam and walking forward. The crowd parted, not out of respect, but out of the instinctual avoidance of a predator. Ronin didn't look like much, a scar running down his jaw, eyes the color of cold steel, and a stillness that unnerved people. But he moved like a man who always had a weapon within reach. Sold to the human for 50 credits. The auctioneer slammed a button, eager to move on. Transferring liability. No refunds on damaged goods. Ronin approached the stage. The droids shoved the girl toward him. She stumbled, falling to her knees. The crowd laughed again. Ronin didn't. He knelt down, putting himself at eye level with her. Up close, the heat coming off her was intense, like standing next to an open furnace. Her eyes snapped up to meet his. They were solid violet, swirling with a chaotic, terrifying power. Get up, Ronin said softly. You are a fool, human, she whispered, her voice sounding like cracking glass. I will burn you. I am broken. Yeah, well. Ronin stood up and offered her a hand, ignoring the warning heat radiating from her skin. My ship's broken too. You'll fit right in. Let's get out of here before the smell of this place ruins my appetite. She hesitated, looking at his hand as if it were a trap. Then slowly she reached out. When her fingers brushed his palm, a static shock loud enough to hear snapped through the air. Ronin didn't flinch. He pulled her up, turned his back on the laughing crowd, and walked her out into the rain. Before we see if Ronin just made the biggest mistake of his life or the best investment in the galaxy, do me a favor. Scroll down and drop a hello in the comments. Tell me which planet or country you're watching from. It really helps the algorithm know that humans are still watching. The walk to the docking bay was silent. The girl, whose name the manifest listed simply as Unit 7, walked 3 paces behind him, her head bowed against the acidic rain. Ronin led her to Bay 94, where the rusty Kestrel sat. It was an ugly ship, a salvaged, retrofitted hauler that looked like a flying brick, covered in patches of mismatched hull plating. "Home, sweet heap," Ronin muttered, keying the airlock. As they stepped inside, the lights flickered and hummed. The girl stopped at the threshold. The inhibitor collars were heavy, dragging her down. Ronin tossed his jacket onto the pilot's chair and turned to her. He pulled a magnetic key from his belt. "Turn around," she froze. You are removing them?" "Can't have you working if you can't move your head," Ronin said. "But the surge, I cannot control it." "The collars are the only thing." "The collars are the problem," Ronin interrupted. "They're bottling you up. Pressure builds until it explodes. Basic mechanics." He stepped behind her. "Hold still." With a mechanical hiss and a heavy clank, the neck collar disengaged and fell to the deck. Then the wrists, then the ankles. The girl gasped, a sound of pure agony and relief. She collapsed forward, catching herself on a cargo crate. Violet light flared from her skin, illuminating the dark corridor of the ship. The lights overhead blew out instantly. The hum of the ship's reactor spiked, a warning siren blaring for a second before dying. Ronin stood in the dark, illuminated only by the glow of the girl's skin. She curled into a ball, shaking. I'm sorry. Please don't beat me," Ronin sighed. He walked over to a wall panel, ripped off a cover and manually twisted 2 wires together. The emergency lights bathed them in a soft red glow. Then he walked to the galley, rummaged in a cabinet and came back. "Here," he said. She looked up, expecting a weapon. It was a nutrient bar and a pouch of water. "It tastes like chalk, but it keeps you alive," Ronin said, sitting on a crate opposite her, giving her space. "I'm Ronin. You got a name other than Unit 7? She stared at the food, then at him. "My mother called me Elara, before the Empire came." "Elara?" Ronin tested the name. "Nice, classy. Listen, Elara. I don't need a slave, I need a co-pilot. I need someone to watch the monitors while I sleep so I don't fly into an asteroid. Can you do that without blowing up the console?" Elara slowly unwrapped the bar, her hands still glowing faintly. "Why, everyone else, they wanted me to power their weapons. Or they wanted to break me. I'm human," Ronin shrugged, taking a sip from his own flask. "We have a bad habit of fixing broken things. Besides, I got you for 50 credits. If you turn out to be a secret superweapon, I look like a genius. If not, at least I have someone to talk to." Elara took a bite. It was the first time she had eaten without pain in years. She looked at the human. This rugged, scarred creature with no psychic shield, no energy manipulation, just fragile biology and a strange, calm arrogance. He wasn't afraid of her. That frightened her more than the cruelty. "The Empire is looking for me," she said quietly. "That is why I was at a disposal auction, to hide me. If they find I am here, they will destroy you." Ronin leaned back, closing his eyes. "Let them come, I've been looking for a fight." The first few weeks were a lesson in volatility. Elara was a walking EMP. If she got stressed, the coffee maker exploded. If she had a nightmare, the gravity generator reversed, sending Ronin floating to the ceiling in his sleep. But Ronin never yelled. He never raised a hand. He just fixed it. He taught her how to play cards. He showed her how to route her excess energy into the ship's shield capacitors, turning her curse into a battery. "You're not leaking," Ronin told her one night while they were repairing a thruster. "You're overflowing. You're a cup that's too small for the ocean inside it. We just need to build you a bigger plumbing system." He modified her suit, weaving conductive threads from the ship's supply into the fabric, grounding her into the ship's hull. For the first time in her life, the pain stopped. The glowing cracks on her skin faded to a soft, rhythmic pulse. She felt stable, and with stability came clarity. She watched Ronin pilot the ship, his hands moving with an intuitive grace that defied logic. He flew by feel, by gut, ignoring the sensors when they didn't smell right. She began to understand why the galaxy feared humans. They were chaotic, they were fragile, but they were relentlessly adaptable. And Ronin was something else. He was a shelter in the void. Their quiet existence shattered 3 months later in the Calypso sector. They had just salvaged a derelict freighter, a good haul that would pay for fuel for a year, when the proximity alarm screamed. It wasn't pirates, it wasn't a patrol. Space tore open. A massive dreadnought, black as the void and bristling with green turrets, dropped out of hyperspace, the Obsidian Star, the flagship of the Imperial Inquisitors. "They found us," Elara whispered, her face losing all color. "I told you. The signature, when I healed the thruster yesterday, they tracked the energy spike." Ronin was already in the pilot's seat, strapping in. "Big ship for one girl." "Ronin, you have to surrender me." Elara stood up, her hands sparking. "They will vaporize the ship, please." "I cannot let you die." Ronin flipped a bank of switches, bringing the engines to a roar. "Elara, look at me." She looked. "We don't surrender. Not today, not ever. Strap in." "You cannot fight a dreadnought," she screamed, the ship shaking as the enemy locked tractor beams onto them. "Watch me," Ronin gritted out. He slammed the throttle forward, not away from the dreadnought, but toward it. "What are you doing?" "They expect us to run," Ronin shouted over the roar of the engines. "So we're going to punch them in the nose." The rusty kestrel dove into the debris field of the freighter they had just salvaged, using the twisted metal as cover. Laser fire erupted around them, vaporizing asteroids and scrap. Ronin flew like a madman, banking off hull plates, spinning through gaps barely wide enough for the ship. "Incoming transmission!" The ship's AI droned. A hologram flickered to life. It was High Inquisitor Vex, a pale, tall humanoid with cybernetic eyes. "Human vessel, power down. You are harboring a Class Alpha fugitive. Surrender her and your death will be swift." "Hey, Vex," Ronin quipped, checking his weapon systems. "Your mother was a vending machine and your father smelled like elderberries." "Incinerate them," Vex ordered calmly. The dreadnought fired its main cannon. A beam of green hellfire slashed through space. Ronin barrel rolled, but the shockwave caught them. The rusty kestrel groaned, metal screaming. The shields dropped to zero instantly. "Shields gone, hull integrity critical," Ronin yelled, fighting the controls. "Elara, I need power. Reroute everything you've got to the forward deflectors." Elara sat in the co-pilot seat, tears streaming down her face. She saw the blood trickling down Ronin's temple. He was going to die because of her. No. Something inside her snapped. Not the break of a fragile thing, but the shattering of a dam. "Ronin," she said, her voice echoing with a strange, harmonic distortion. "Drop the deflectors." "What?" Ronin looked at her. Her skin wasn't just glowing, it was blinding. Her hair was floating, white flames licking at the ends. "Drop them, I am the shield." Ronin hesitated for a fraction of a second. It was insane, it was suicide, but he looked at her eyes. They weren't fearful anymore, they were ancient. "Doing it," Ronin said, and he killed the safety protocols. Elara unbuckled. She didn't walk, she floated to the center of the bridge. She placed both hands on the main console. The ship screamed, not in pain, but in power. The lights turned from red to a blinding, pure violet. "Get us close, Ronin," Elara commanded. Her voice was the sound of a collapsing star. Ronin grinned, blood on his teeth. "Hold on tight, sunshine." He slammed the thrusters to 110%. The ship rocketed forward, straight into the maw of the dreadnought. The Imperial gunners fired everything they had. Thousands of turrets lit up the dark, but the lasers didn't hit. 10 meters from the hull of the rusty kestrel, the energy beams dissolved. They hit an invisible barrier and simply ceased to exist. Elara wasn't blocking them, she was eating them. She was absorbing the kinetic and thermal energy, feeding it into the ship's core. Energy output exceeding 4,000%. The computer warned, its voice trembling. "Reactor critical, no, reactor evolving." "Fire the main cannon," Ronin yelled. "We don't have a main cannon," Elara said. "We are the cannon." She thrust her hands forward. From the nose of their small, rusted salvage ship, a beam of violet energy erupted. It wasn't a laser. It was a gravity lance, pure, concentrated force. It hit the dreadnought's shields and shattered them like glass. It punched through the heavy armor plating, through the decks, through the entire length of the massive warship. The Obsidian Star didn't explode, it imploded. The beam compromised its gravity core. The massive ship crumpled inward, twisting like a soda can crushed by an invisible giant. Before detonating in a silent, blinding flash of white light, Ronin banked the ship hard, riding the shockwave away from the destruction. Silence fell over the bridge. The violet light faded, Elara collapsed. Ronin was out of his seat in a heartbeat, catching her before she hit the deck. She was burning hot, smoke rising from her uniform, but she was breathing. She opened her eyes, the chaos was gone. They were clear, deep, and exhausted. Did I break the ship?" she whispered. Ronin looked at the monitor, which showed the debris of the most feared ship in the galaxy, Then he looked at her, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "No, Elara," he smiled, a genuine soft smile. "You just upgraded it." 6 months later, the rusty Kestrel sat docked at Omega Station. But it looked different now. The rust was gone, replaced by a sleek, matte black hull that seemed to absorb light. Rumors had spread across the outer rim. Stories of a ghost ship piloted by a mad human and an entity of pure light. They said the Empire had put a bounty on them so high it could buy a planet. But no bounty hunter dared to collect. Ronin stood by the airlock, negotiating with a terrified heavy freighter captain. "I'm telling you," the captain stammered. "The route through the nebula is suicide. Pirates, anomalies." "We'll get your cargo there," Ronin said, leaning casually against the hull. "For triple the standard rate." "Triple? That's extortion. Take it or leave it. You're paying for the best security in the galaxy." Elara walked down the ramp. She moved differently now. Head high, stride purposeful. She wore a tailored flight suit, black with violet trim. The inhibitor scars on her neck were still there. Faint silver lines, but she wore them like war paint. "Is there a problem, Captain?" she asked, her voice melodic but carrying an undertone of immense pressure. The freighter captain looked at her, then at the strange violet glow emanating from the ship's engines. He swallowed hard. No problem. Triple is fair." As the captain hurried away to transfer the credits, Elara turned to Ronin, raising an eyebrow. "Triple, you are greedy, Ronin. Hey, fuel ain't cheap. And I promise to buy you that dress from the core worlds." Elara smiled, stepping close to him. She placed a hand on his chest. A gentle warmth seeped through his jacket, not burning but comforting. A connection that went deeper than words. "I do not need a dress," she said softly. "I have everything I need." Ronin covered her hand with his. "We're not just survivors anymore, Elara. We're the ones who knock back. The Empire is regrouping," she warned, though the fear was gone from her voice. "They will send more." "Let them come," Ronin said, turning to look at the stars, which no longer looked like a cold void but like a playground. "We have a lot of bad luck to share." He wed the unwanted slave, the broken thing the galaxy threw away, and in doing so he didn't just save her. He unleashed a power that would rewrite the history of the stars. Because when a human gives you a reason to fight, even a broken star can shine bright enough to blind an empire. If you enjoyed this story and want to see what happens next with Ronin and Elara, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us keep the engines running. And check out the video on the screen now. I think you're going to love it.